Amaran has a new line of lights called the Ray, and it includes 4 different lights. Today we're going to take a look at one of them, the 660C, which I did not expect. This video is sponsored by me and Learn Light and Sound. We have courses on how to improve your lighting and sound for video, linked down below. All right, Amaran Ray lights. This is the 660C. This is the one I did not expect. It is a 660 watt point source light with a Bowens-mount. And there are some things that are interesting about them. So Amaran and Aputure are obviously related. I think most of us know that. But within a couple of years ago or so, they kind of split them up a little bit to have them focus on different markets. Aputure is definitely reaching for the higher end. And they are producing lights at this point that are used by professionals on sets for commercial, narrative, and other types of video production work. They're catering to that crowd, and that is a kind of a niche, very specific crowd. They need super, super durability. These are the kinds of lights that you would go to a rental house to get for your production. Amaran lights, on the other hand, are much more affordable, but they still enjoy some of the same benefits of the features that have been developed in the Aputure line for a long time. Color accuracy is almost always really, really good. But what they don't do is they don't necessarily have all of the features and that the high-end ones do, like the Aputure lights do for the high end of the market. And they also don't necessarily have the build quality. That's where I was a little surprised here. So the Ray lights includes 4 different lights. There's the 60C, the 120C, the 330C, and the 660C. We're going to take a look at the 660C. The numbers generally refer to the max wattage, the amount of power that they use. And in this particular case, I am lighting this entire video with the 660C right here. It's about 2 meters from me. It's at 5600 Kelvin. Its intensity is set to 3%. My camera is set to ISO 800, shooting at 23.976 frames per second with a 180 degree shutter angle at f2.8. This light is powerful. So you could use this for a lot of things. And what's interesting is that I find myself not squarely in either of the 2 markets that Aputure and Amaran are serving generally. So there's this high end of the market, which is the large production commercial pieces and narrative films. And, we're talking at least $100,000 budget, even for just a little 30-second commercial or whatever. Then there's the creators. And the creators are people making YouTube and TikTok videos and Instagram videos or whatever. They generally have different needs. So they're often working at home or in a small studio. They often put the lights up and they can generally leave them there. Or if they are setting them up and taking them down each time, it's just at home. So it's not like it's on set. It's not getting thrown onto a production truck. It doesn't necessarily have to be as durable as the Aputure lights need to be because they are getting thrown onto to production trucks all the time. So then there's this middle ground that I think I operate in, and certainly at the start of my career and even today, where, for example, today I work at a company called Webflow, technology company based in San Francisco. We have a studio. We set our lights up and they stay there. We don't take them down and put them up every time we need to film. We're in a pretty kind of a much lower budget studio than these commercial pieces or narrative pieces that I was talking about. So we're kind of in this middle space where we need the color accuracy, we need the reliability, we need something that's quality, but I don't need something that I can throw on a production truck necessarily. And I don't necessarily need DMX. Some studios may need DMX, and in fact, the Ray lights are capable of doing DMX if you use a USB-C to DMX dongle. So in that case, it wouldn't be something you'd be taking down and setting up each day. And so a dongle is probably okay. So these are the kind of things that I think about when I think of this new Ray line. And I'm very excited about it because, especially the bigger lights, because they're really high quality COB lights that can work in almost any situation. First of all, color accuracy. Here are the metrics that we measured with our Seikonic C800 compared to the Aputure Storm 400 for reference. And you can see here, especially the biggest metric here from my point of view, well, there are 2. The output is one thing, and I've already mentioned that we have this at 3% just to do a talking head. You could easily do like a 4-person interview around a table kind of thing using a lantern style modifier on it. You could do lots of stuff. You have all the power that you need. And it's incredibly quiet. Like at 3%, obviously the fan doesn't even turn on in this environment. Maybe if I was outside in the direct sun, it would, but Even when the fan comes on, it's incredibly quiet, which I appreciate. But back to color accuracy. SSI is probably the most important metric on the photometrics here. And the SSI is 86 at 3200 Kelvin and 82 at 5500 Kelvin. That is really close to the Aputure Storm 400X with its super impressive Blair lighting engine. In my experience, the Blair lighting engine, of the lights that I've used, and I haven't used all the lights on the market, especially at the very highest end, but the Blair lighting engine produces probably some of the best color accuracy I've seen in LED lights across the spectrum. The SSI reflects that. Now, the Ray 660 is very close. It's not exactly the same, but I think what they've done is they've made this new Omni-Color lighting engine, and this mixes multiple LED colors to create the overall spectral output. Now, here's the thing to know about LEDs. LEDs are not like sunlight, and they're not like incandescent lights. Sunlight outputs light all across the visible spectrum, and it's pretty predictable. Same with incandescent lights. While they don't produce as much output down in the blues and indigos, it's always very reliable and predictable. You know that there's going to be less of it down there and more of it up in the reds. So they're actually fairly easy to work with. So cameras can adapt their white balance settings because they know what they're going to get when you're talking about sunlight or when you're talking about incandescent lights. LEDs are all over the place. And LEDs at their core, if you don't put anything on it to control the color output, they're very, very blue. And so that is not going to work well. If you just stuck some raw LEDs down in front of someone to light them, it's not going to look great. So what they've done in the Omni-Color lighting engine is they've used multiple LED colors on the COB. They have 2 red emitters, a green emitter, 2 blue emitters, an indigo emitter, and then a soft white, which is sort of like a tungsten white and a little bit of lime in it as well. So the Omni-Color engine is kind of like the Blair engine, but it is less expensive to produce, and its color accuracy is still very good. So that's how we ended up with the Ray line. And I am, again, super impressed with the kind of the boundaries that Amaran is pushing here with these new designs. It is IP54 rated, all of the lights in this line. That means they're splash resistant, so they're going to be fine in the rain. They're not waterproof, though, so you shouldn't go dunking them in the swimming pool or putting them underwater. And they're also somewhat dust resistant. So while this is not like an IP67 rated electronic device like a phone, it is actually very good. And you're not going to have to worry when it starts raining and your light is set up outside. You just, when you're done, air it out for, 6 hours, and you're probably going to be just fine. So that's fantastic. In terms of controlling the light, obviously there are controls on the light itself, but you can also control it via their Bluetooth app, the Amaran app, which is on iOS and Android. It's a great app. You can control a whole bunch of lights, and they've done a couple of things that make it even easier to use. One of the things I've always been frustrated with on Bluetooth apps, control apps, is that sometimes it takes forever to reconnect to the lights or to connect to the lights in the first place and to get things set up. And especially if you're doing a complex lighting design with a lot of different lights. In this case, they've made it super simple. So it has NFC pairing, so you can just literally hold your phone up to the light. That pairs it immediately so that you're all set to go. And you can even use the NFC if the light is off. It doesn't even have to be on. So if you have a bunch of lights set out, you can just literally take your app on the phone, NFC next to each of them, and you're connected to all 3 of them. Then you can go set them up and you can control them from your phone or mobile device. Fantastic. As I mentioned before, it is DMX capable, but it's not built in. And I think this is a really important thing. So there are a lot of corporate video people that are using Aputure lights. But the newest generation, as they move up market, they're getting kind of expensive, and we don't necessarily have those budgets to work with. So this is really nice because I get the best of both worlds. I'm not paying for the DMX capabilities if I don't need them. And if I'm going on location, and I would feel confident going on location with the Ray 660 and the 330, I haven't looked as closely at the smaller ones yet, but probably feel pretty comfortable with that as well. But I'm not having to pay for DMX if I don't need it. And I'm not going to need it when I'm on location generally. And for those that are not familiar with what DMX is, now traditionally DMX is a wired standard by which you can control lights. So you can do it wired, and now you can do it wirelessly as well. But the idea is that I can have a light board in my studio or in a theater and be able to control all the lights from the light board. Very cool. Not something I need on location for the types of shoots I'm doing, which are generally talking head and so on and so forth. So if I did set this up in a studio where I did want to get it into a DMX system, I could go with that adapter. Now, one clever thing they've done across the Ray lineup is include this new knob that they call flow turn. Have you ever, and many of us have done it, if you've used a light and you're changing you're in HSI mode and you're changing the color hue, you're turning and turning and turning and turning and turning the knob until you get to where you want to be. It's not that big of a deal, but this is super cool. With the flow turn knob, I can just spin it and it keeps going on its own. It's motorized, and I just tap it with my finger when I want it to stop in the general area where I want it to stop, and then I can fine tune it by just turning it back to where I want it. So it's actually surprisingly useful. I really like it. I think that was a very clever addition to the Ray lineup. This light, of course, all four of these lights have Bowens-mounts with a new line of light modifiers optimized for the Rays. So here, for example, I am using the Octabox 120. So it's a 120 centimeter Octabox, and it's really well built. Aputure and Amaran have so many generations of experience building these types of things. Sets up and breaks down really quickly and easily, and it seems quite durable. I think it's going to be just great. The Ray 660, Ray 660 and the 330 have their power supplies integrated into the heads, so you don't have an extra power brick. You just have an IEC cable from the light head to your AC mains. That is beautiful. Thank you so much, Amaran, for that. So we don't have that extra power brick flying around and having to manage. There is also a high frame rate mode that supports 1/1000th of a second shutter speeds for photographers or 240 frames per second for video. So essentially what you do is you lock it into HFR mode, which makes it so that you can't reduce the light output below 50%. And it's usually on the LED lights when you get below a certain percentage, where they start to use something called pulse width modulation in most cases. And the idea with that is that your eye can't see it, but they're essentially turning the LEDs on and off very quickly to output less light. That's how they can do it. That's how they essentially dim them. So that's what they do there. So what that means is that you can film at much higher frame rates or shutter speeds if you're doing photography. Also a feature I haven't seen on any other LED light. Is it advanced science? No, they're just locking it to 50% or higher. But it's a cool setting. In terms of price, the 660 comes in at $699 US, and the 330 comes in at $429 US for the quality of light. And actually, let me actually talk about that a little bit here really quickly. The build quality on this is tremendous. The yoke is basically the same as the yoke on my Aputure Storm 400X, which is to say incredible durability, metal, strength, not ever going to worry about it. Not going to worry about it being able to handle large modifiers, light modifiers on the Bowens-mount. The only difference is that the casing around the light on the Amaran Ray is plastic. It's a high density, feels like a really thick, solid plastic, whereas on the Aputure Storm series, for example, it's a really thick metal that's made for throwing on a production truck, like literally hucking on a production truck day after day, and it will stand up. These are super tough and can handle what seems to me like pretty much any size modifier that you can put on that Bowens-mount. It doesn't have the locking Bowens-mount like is on the Storm series, but we'll come to that in just a second here. So let's talk about that comparison for a little in more detail. So what does the Aputure Storm line have that the Ray 660 and 330 don't have? So again, Storm is made for working pros and production companies who put their lights on production trucks and shoot on location regularly, every week. The Storm series have the Blair and the Blair CG lighting engines. This is some of probably the most color accurate LED lighting instruments in the industry. And it's beautiful light. It's really, really good. This is so close to that. It's amazing. Pro-lock Bowens-mount. That's what the Storm has, which is essentially like a PL mount on a cinema camera. It is super, super solid. But I'm finding the Bowens-mount on the Ray 660 is great. Is there a little bit of play? Yes, but not as much as on some of the older lights that I've seen. So that's another thing. The Storm series have a separate power box that sits on the light stand, has a mount that puts it on the light stand. And that power box also has Cine battery mounts, so you can actually power the light via Cine batteries. That is not an option here on the Ray series. And again, as I mentioned, that incredible sturdy all-metal build on the Storm series This has an incredible build. The only difference is that plastic casing, which is, again, a very high quality plastic. The Amaran 330 and 660 are now better suited for people like me in the middle, between the creators and the high-end pros. I'm working in that middle space, and these lights are just perfect for me. I get all the light output I need. I get the color quality I need. I get lower prices that are more achievable. $700 for someone who is a working professional but not working at the very top of the industry is a really nice option. I don't need wired DMX, so I don't want to pay for that up front if I don't need it, but I can always add it later with that USB-C to DMX adapter if I need it. I don't need to power via battery because I'm working in a studio all the time, or if I am on location, I am generally working in an office, and so we have plenty of AC power available there. And if worse comes to worse, I've got some battery banks with inverters in them, and I can actually bring those and power these lights for a long time as well. I don't need the Pro-Lock Bowens-mount because we leave the modifier attached 99% of the time, so I'm not taking it off and putting it back on or anything like that. And I would say that the build quality of the 660C and the 330C are everything that I need it to be. Super strong. They cut the costs in terms of the Omni-Color light engine, which is still incredibly high quality, almost as good as Blair, which is industry leading. And it isn't a tank. It's like it's lighter. It's lighter as a result, which is perfect for my use cases. So I hope that was helpful in giving some context for the new Ray series from Amaran. Full disclosure, Amaran sent these lights to me. I didn't have to pay for them. I get to keep them. They have not paid me or told me what to say in this video, so everything that I've shared here, they haven't reviewed the video prior to posting, so this is all my own words. Hope that was helpful. If you have questions, go ahead and put them down below. If you are interested in learning about the smaller lights in the series, also let me know down below. Get out there and make some great lighting designs. We'll talk to you soon.